at my base, I think this is just a sport that I fell in love with from the first time I played it in grade five. It's been a passion of mine ever since. And I just love being part of a team, and that was always exciting to me. I actually grew up racing motocross, so it's a highly individual sport, obviously, and I love that too. And I'm still pretty passionate about that sport, actually, all these years later. But volleyball. I played a bunch of sports, but volleyball was the thing that grabbed me, and I just loved how important being a team is to success in volleyball. And all my friendships grew from volleyball, most of them. And I would just describe myself as somebody who grew up in a really strong middle class family with good work ethic, and I had great parents, and they instilled those things in me, and I think I bring that to my coaching. And I love being around people, and I love building good relationships and teams with people I spend time with, and I enjoy working with my colleagues. I've got an amazing group of colleagues at U of M that I look forward to seeing and working with every day. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just in a really good spot with my kind of life and career, and just really enjoying it at the moment. I was asked by my phys ed teacher. He was a really accomplished volleyball player that I didn't know about till later. Um, Outstanding athlete. Anyway, there was an opening. The freshman girls volleyball team needed a coach, and I was in grade 12, and he asked me, and I'm like, "Hey, that'd be cool because I get to be in the gym more." And did I know much about coaching? Obviously not. Um, but he could have asked me to coach the freshman boys, and I would have said the same thing. It just happened to be this girls' team, and so I said, "Yeah, 100%, I'll do it." And then I kind of followed them through, 2 years of varsity following. So I just gravitated towards it, and university volleyball had no such thing as a libero. Like I'm 5'5", so I didn't have much of a future at the U sport level, clearly. But I'd already kind of been bitten by the coaching bug, and I just followed this. I just followed my passion essentially, and I had good things kind of just fall before me because I was passionate and looking for opportunities, and that's kind of how it all evolved. My path will probably likely never be repeated, honestly. Um, when when we talk about 40 years, I every time somebody asks me, how long have you been there? And I say, well, it's my 40th year. I can't help but laugh because it is funny in a way. Um, Remarkable, but it's also kind of funny. No, I spent 4 years at the University of Winnipeg with a really important coach in my life, Mike Burchuk, who I annoyed him long enough just to stay around because he really didn't want me there initially, but I stuck around. And so the job came open because the coach at U of M left late in August to go to UBC to take the job there, and the timeline was pretty tight. I'd had some success, in Manitoba, coaching on my own at that point, and I was really fortunate to get the job. Like no joke, right place, right time. Garth Pishy was very supportive of my application, which obviously has meant a lifetime career for me. So I'm always grateful to him for that. And he wasn't the only person who certainly was involved in hiring me, but he was a big part of it. And so, yeah, in 1986, 87, the landscape was completely different than it is now. You can't even compare it. It was really, youth sport volleyball was just starting to grow into the premier level in the country. It wasn't even the top level at that point. Club volleyball still was. So, I was lucky I got in kind of the ground floor when it started to become a bit more, prominent. And then, of course, it's all grown tremendously. And the level of coaching, the professionalism of coaching, athlete development, all that stuff is just, it's grown exponentially. So 40 years later, here I find myself in a completely different environment, obviously, and all the better. I will say, so yeah, fast forward, it's crazy how much it's changed, but it's all changed for the better. So I think youth sports is in probably the best place it's been in a long time. In terms of level of play, level of athlete, level of coaching, I think that it's never been stronger. Coaching this long, I think coaching in general, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and so there are opportunities for growth there. Obviously, when you're not doing as well as a coach. And for me to sit here and say, hey, this 40 years has been this smooth linear path would just be ridiculous. I mean, every coach is going to go through tough moments. Certainly I have in my career. But I've also been lucky to have really good people in place that have supported me, and opportunities for growth. And I've had the chance to coach amazing people. And each of those championships are really special. I mean, we've made 11 finals. We didn't come out on top on every one of those, but we had the chance to, which obviously to win it, you got to be in it. Um, and so, and those losses also provided growth, for our team the next year to come back and have won too. So, um, yeah, I think that, one thing that I've tried to continue to do is to continue to learn. And so I'm really invested in that. I've also learned to have a little bit more self-care too, and to really protect my time off. Because I was, involved with national team programs back in the day, and I would kind of coach this year round nonstop, and I kind of never get off the hamster wheel. But I've learned it's really important to get off that hamster wheel and just recover emotionally and mentally, and it's made me a much better coach. And it takes time after a season to really recover from that. So I'm much more guarded about my time off. And is it really time off? You're recruiting, you're doing off-season preparation, but just not being in the gym and getting time away from that. And I think for the athletes too, it's really important that there's got to be a kind of a cycle where there's a beginning and an ending. You've got to end for a new beginning to start, to reset your goals and to reset your emotional state, and to find time to recover from that whole cycle of training and effort and intensity, so that you can really fill your cup and have a good chance to do it. So I think I'm a lot better at that, and it's just made me a better coach too. So those are some of the things that I've learned along the journey that have kept me, I think, relevant, and I've kept my eyes open to changes in the game. I think I still am really invested in, um, seeking sources for growth and development, whether it's going to clinics or whether it's watching stuff on video or whatever it is. Like I'm an opportunist. I will steal anything to be a better coach, and I've kept the enthusiasm to continue to do it and not to do the same old thing. And the other thing I'd say too is that even if you have the same returning team, I mean, we've had this core group together the last 5 years. It's been amazing. Just a fantastic group to coach, and we've had really good success, because we've stayed together. Every year is still markedly different. Every year it's a different challenge, even if the same people return. And so I assume nothing going into a new year. Like it really does present a brand new start. And so I try to stay humble to that process. I just think it's really important. I don't think I could fully put into words what that environment was like. When we last hosted 2 years in a row, it was 99 and 2000. And we lost in the final the first year. We won the second year. And it was like our gym was 90% full. And it was enthusiastic, obviously, for the time. And it was great. But this one was like off the chain. I mean, you could not wedge one more person into that place, and the fire department would have shut us down. I mean, and it was so loud in there that I literally couldn't coach from the bench. It was a good thing I felt we were prepared, because they certainly couldn't hear me, which was just as well probably. But it was, and I think too, the bigger piece of that is, we've been really invested in the community with our junior bison program and our outreach, and we've been invested in that for a long, long time. And I think it was just, it represented good karma, to the community, that they all kind of came together. And volleyball is a really important piece in our community in Manitoba. We don't have the same numbers, obviously, as Ontario or Alberta, BC, but it's still a really core sport that's important. And man, yeah, it's hard to put it into words. It was amazing, but I also, we had a team worthy of hosting too. We had a team worthy of competing for the win, which is obviously very exciting. Um, and then after that, it was just trying to normalize the environment and not get caught up in it. I mean, my message to the team before we started the match was, let's play the match, not the moment. Let's just play it like we played any other match at any other time, as best we could. and I thought we did a brilliant job of that. I was just so proud of our team for the way they handled that and just played the match like another match, even though obviously it was super exciting and your emotions are like Mach 10. But man, we just corralled those things and still played great volleyball. We um, and just reflected our training. So I was just so proud of it and so grateful to the community for their support. And that's what youth sports should be. Every championship should be exactly like that one. And I think we set a really high bar for hosting nationals. And I'm also really proud of our All Canadian banquet. I thought we did a brilliant job of that. So just from tee to green when we started it and right to the end, I thought our staff just amazing. I work with an amazing group of people, and they were just so passionate about doing the best job they could, and it showed in every way. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just can't. It's hard to encapsulate how wonderful it was. Yeah, I think at this point, I would like to say I'm firm but fair. Um, uh, I think our program has high goals and a high standard that we want to maintain because we want to be competitive with the top teams in the country. So there's a certain standard that you have to hold to, obviously, for that. But I'd like to think, as I've kind of moved along here, that I've become a bit more collegial in that. We kind of have to meet in the middle. The athletes have to bring their effort, and their expectation of me should be that I come prepared every day with a good plan. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and for their entire career. That is the challenge for me, and to be able to do it in good stead, right? So that I can coach a kid in their fifth year when they're really good players and still push the envelope for them to improve. And then in return, they have to continue to give me, the effort that has gotten them to that point also. I think I'm a pretty big stickler for doing things right. Technical skills, I'm really big on executing properly. I think I'm a good teacher of those skills and how they build a great foundation for a really good volleyball team. I liken it to building a house. If you build a house with a poor foundation, the first sign of bad weather, the thing blows down and it's no good. So you need to build the house that can withstand those pressures, those external forces. So I think that's rooted in good skill. It's rooted in good effort every day. It's rooted in good intention every day. Um, and once you've got those things in place, you can build a pretty good house that is going to stand the test of time. So that's kind of the analogy I draw when I'm recruiting, when I'm talking to players. I used to really preach a real strong sense of emotional control in my teams, and I still do to a degree, but now I've landed at a spot where you can play with emotion, just not play emotionally. That's kind of where I am now. And I'll tell you a really quick lesson, a really great lesson I learned from another coach. I was on a research study leave in 2015. I took a year to go and to learn from other coaches and spend time in other gyms. It was really good for me. I needed a break, and I spent time at Penn State with a guy named Russ Rose, who also won 7 championships. He was one of the you know top coaches in the U.S. He was really generous with his time, and I spent a week there, and we had a chance to have a chat for a couple hours in the afternoon. And I asked him the question. I said, Russ, your teams they play with a lot of emotion, right? And I said, what's your philosophy behind that? And what he said really changed me. He said, they're kids. I want them to have fun, so I really don't pay much attention to it. I just want to make sure they're playing the kind of volleyball that we train. Um, and I was like, wow, okay, duly noted. And it really did. It started to change me and my outlook on that a little bit. And now I think our team is plays much differently than we did many years ago. And I'm actually grateful for it. I'm grateful for the time I spent with him. I learned a lot and kind of opened my eyes a little bit too. And I've also had some really key players this last generation that have just changed the culture of how we operate on the bench and stuff. And it's been super cool. I have to say, like, I was watching film one day. This is about 3 years ago, and I was watching film, and something happened, and because my back is to the bench, so I really don't notice what they're doing. I don't look, um, and all of a sudden, the bench hit the floor and did 5 push-ups. And I was like, what the hell's happening here? Like, I don't know what's going on. So in the film, I stopped and I said, hey, like, what's the deal here? And they say, "Oh, coach, like every time we get a stuff block, we hit the floor and we give the, we give our blockers 5 push-ups." I'm like, okay, all right, that's pretty funny. And so now they've got this whole antic thing, and I hear from a lot of people about how positive our bench culture is. And one of our key athletes, Chelsea Sabanga from Hamilton, Ontario, shout out to Chelsea. She was kind of the driver of this whole thing, and so I just gave her the wheel, man, and I said, do your thing, and it's been wonderful. It's been great, and I really love that part of our team. I really enjoyed it, and people, that have known me a long time, are like, what's happening over there, So it's been really cool. I think probably the biggest challenge right now is the idea that this whole thing, pursuit of high performance sport, it is delayed gratification personified, right? Like there are no quick or immediate rewards here. And so, but the journey of that, I think, is the most worthwhile journey of all, because you learn how to work, you learn how to persist, you learn how to fail, and to find out it's not the end of the world. You can get up and dust yourself off and start over, and you're fine, and you can still work towards really high goals, and they're never going to be attained without a little bit of that. You just, it's going to be inconvenient at some point, but so is life, and so is any career you're going to choose. Um, so my message would be that it's the pursuit is so worthwhile for the journey, and it's really, yeah, we're trying to win and all that stuff, but man, the journey of that, I think, is so worthwhile. You don't even know it at the time, but then you know it later, and you're like, wow, okay, I get it. It sometimes it takes some time, and I think with our team now, specifically, what I always tell my team is before we play every match, I'm like, look, your responsibility is to go out there and be the team others want to play for. That's how you should be representing yourself. And I think that carries on, past just our team. So, you know, I I preach those things sincerely, because I think that it's so worth the effort and the rewards that you get out of it, not just for the win of it, in and of itself. It's the relationships you build. It's the scar tissue you build along the way that's so valuable. And most people that you've talked to that have been successful in an endeavor have kind of stood the test of time, and they've stayed in it when things weren't great, but they found a way to persist. And then in the end, you're kind of rewarded for that. So I think that's a big role that we play as coaches. Um, and I think it's never more important than